Good afternoon, respected judges. My name is Shrika Velagapudi. I'm from Orlando Science High School, and today I will be arguing my pro-con challenge cases, starting with my affirmative. Quote, the NCAA's commitment is to student athletes, and it will continue to vigorously defend any attempts to divide them based on arbitrary standards, as it demeans the hard work and sacrifice of all who participate in college sports. End quote. The utopian perspective of the statement by the NCAA is completely undermined by the failed attempts to protect student rights and give them their due from athletic labor performed. For this reason, I affirm the resolution resolved. In the United States, collegiate student athletes should be classified as employees of their educational institution. I begin with my first contention. Classifying collegiate student athletes as employees of their educational institution secures them financial compensation for the professional or full-time job equivalent of their work. The majority of vocations have 40-hour work weeks as the norm, an amount highly resemblant to the 44.8 hours of intense training spent by football players in the 2006 NCAA survey of 21,000 undergraduate athletes. The similarities between collegiate athletics and traditional employment raise a query into the equity of denying student athletes compensation for the substantial time they invest in their athletic pursuits. This in turn raises the question of excessive athletics. According to a 2019 Excessive Athletics Time report by the Drake Group, excessive athletics time demands are interfering with sleep, prohibiting recovery from injury and strenuous exercise sessions, increasing the dangers of concussion, inducing stress that affects mental health, and interfering with academic responsibilities. Rather than providing equitable financial compensation to athletes, the NCAA has implemented regulations constraining the comprehensive duration of countable athletically related activity, also known as CARA, as a measure to address the demands on student athletes. However, dilemmas regarding inconsistent enforcement, variability due to institutional competitiveness, and the evolution of sports culture to fit the landscape of modern-day college athletics hold CARA at an inconclusive state. I continue with my second contention. Classifying collegiate student athletes as employees of their educational institution breaks salary wage barriers relating to ethnicity and athletic profiles. The prospect of student athletes monetizing their name, image, and likeness, NIL, introduces a concern regarding the unequal distribution of profits, thereby precipitating internal conflicts within collegiate teams and probable long-term repercussions. This applies not only in regard to differences within the athletic profile of students, but also in regard to ethnicity. As highlighted in a report by the Knight Commission on Intercollegiate Athletics, quote, the most high-profile Division I sports rely on the revenue production of Football Bowl Subdivision, FBS, and Division I basketball, sports in which more than half of the college athletes are black males, and their richly compensated coaches are overwhelmingly white males, end quote. In his 2010 expose of the NCAA, sociologist Bill Hawkins, quote, shows how the racialized organizations of the NCAA created a system of internal colonization, where the dominant group of PWIs became the colonizers who bought black athletes for their exploitative plantation system. The big colleges wielded the disciplinary cudgel of amateurism to prevent black and brown athletes from monetizing their labor through the specious goal of protecting them from exploitation, end quote. I move on to my third and final contention. Classifying collegiate student athletes as employees of their educational institution allows the NCAA to ensure the exploitation prevention of athletes regarding uncompensated contributions to the university's athletic revenue as well as third-party groups. As outlined in a 2023 research paper published by the UST School of Law, quote, many scholars and authors, including a justice of the United States Supreme Court, refer to the business of college athletics as being built on the backs of college athletes who suffered from exploitation because they were not allowed to profit while others flourished in the business of college sports, which is currently an $18 billion industry, end quote. The significant revenue streams yielded annually by sports such as basketball and football, encompassing ticket sales, retail sales, and television airing rights, underscore their financial value to universities. The evolving landscape of sport evident in the policy shifts concerning NIL reflects a recognition that collegiate athletes contribute increasingly valuable investments to their institutions outside their on-field performances, leading to the endorsement of NIL monetization. Amy Perko, CEO of the Knight Commission on Intercollegiate Athletics, highlights that, quote, college athletes, most of whom will not be represented by the council when they enter NIL deals, are vulnerable to abuse, exploitation, or incompetence by third parties that could have significant impact on their financial aid, immigration status, taxes, and intellectual property rights, end quote. A vote for the negative ballot is a vote for injustice, discrimination, and exploitation, and it is for these reasons that I strongly urge voting towards the affirmative ballot. I will now move on to my negative or con case. Quote, we can never move to a place where we are paying players to play sports for us. No, it will not happen. This assertive quote, articulated by the National Collegiate Athletic Association and CAA's president Mark Emmert, is conveyed and built upon a foundation of financial, regulatory, and socio-cultural burdens for both employers and employees of educational institutions, and is also the catalyst behind my negative stance of the following issue. Resolved, In the United States, collegiate student athletes should be classified as employees of the educational institution. I begin with my first contention. Classifying collegiate student athletes as employees of the educational institution entails detrimental tax implications on both the employer and employees regarding budgetary constraints and financial stability, respectively. Granting employee status to student athletes means universities are hiring individuals who do not labor directly for educational benefits, therefore jeopardizing their 501c3 tax designation and resulting in the IRS ceasing to acknowledge their tax-exempt status. Following this, donors or contributors would no longer be eligible for tax write-offs, decreasing the amount of donated money substantially as well as subjecting it to taxation. While it may sound like a stretch to say that this lack of large funding to college athletic departments may financially deplete their programs, a report by Anderson Tax ensures the opposite by stating, quote, "Contributions are by far the largest source of income for athletic departments. The subsequent tax hit from unrelated business income tax, UBIT, could be substantial. 15 to 35% at the federal level alone. Not only would substantial donors no longer be able to deduct their donations, they would also have to pay IRS up to 45% of the value of any gift over the $14,000 threshold. Regarding the student employees, the augmentation of tax liability would be clearly depicted, as the inclusion of athletic earnings as part of their taxable income during tax return filing would be a necessity, while consequently reducing athletes' net financial profit. As Frank Messina, the University of Alabama at Birmingham's faculty, representatives, and a CPA inquires, quote, "Will these funds given to student athletes be scholarships for college, or will they be considered income for services and taxed?" I continue with my second contention. Classifying collegiate student athletes as employees of the educational institution heightens the risk of incompliance with Title IX in regards to the athletic equity gap. As Volume 19 of the College Athletics and the Law expresses, quote, "Schools can justify non-discriminatory reasons for spending different amounts of money for some men's teams versus women's teams. An example is when football uniforms cost more than women's volleyball uniforms. But if a school pays student athletes as employees for their time, it's hard to justify paying men and women differently, even if a school claims male student athletes are more valuable as employees than female student athletes." End quote. In the long run, only two options remain for universities. Option 1, financial allocation of monetary funds towards high-profile athletic programs such as men's basketball and football, resulting in illegal discrimination of gender and minorities in sports and therefore non-compliance with Title IX. This means financial burdens would be lifted at the risk of retribution for unlawful activity. Option 2, eliminating low-profile and non-revenue athletics predominantly affecting women's sports to compensate and alleviate the financial strain on universities, which comes from equal yet stable compensation of funds towards all sports programs. This minimizes the risk of violating Title IX legislation at the expense of disturbing the quality of life and disrupting the hobbies/interests of a multitude of athletes. To mitigate universities from having to face such quandaries, it is imperative not to designate college athletes as employees. I move on to my third and final contention. Classifying collegiate student athletes as employees of their educational institution erodes the foundational principles of college athletics while redirecting collegiate and educational focus. Amateurism is defined as the practice of a sport on an unpaid basis, and as noted in the 2011 report NCAA Division I Athletics, Amateurism and Exploitation, an effort to maintain schools' professionalism in collegiate athletics is a provocative measure to protect the values and principles of college athletics while preserving their long-enjoyed cultural and entertainment incentives. The significance of preserving amateurism in collegiate sports is emphasized directly by the Supreme Court of the United States, which states, quote, "As this court explained in the NCAA v. Board of Regents of University of Oklahoma, 1984, the NCAA needs ample latitude to play its critical role in the maintenance of a revered tradition of amateurism in college sports, noting the court's respect for the NCAA's historic role in the preservation and encouragement of intercollegiate amateur athletics. Additionally, classifying collegiate student athletes as employees incentivizes revenue generation and commercial benefits from players, shifting the focus away from the scholarly aspect of educational institutions. This subverts the primary mission of university, which is to educate students, instead promoting a culture where students are compelled to devote their full-time efforts primarily to financial proceeds. Providing employment status to collegiate athletes would severely dim the line between amateurism and professionalism, undermining the valuable nature of college-based athletics in regard to cultural values and national significance, while compromising the virtue of the academic experience. A vote for the affirmative ballot is a vote for financial collapse, legislative infringement, and academic downfall, and it is for these reasons that I strongly urge voting towards the negative ballot. Thank you for your time.